Now, let us begin with the webinar on Faceless Assessment, Appeals and Taxpayers Charter. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in association with the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all our participants, dignitaries, and our highly esteemed speakers for sparing their highly valuable time for our members and sharing their concerns. As we begin this very interesting and need of the hour session, may I request Mr. Rajiv Poddar, President, IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to present the welcome address. Over to you, Mr. Poddar.
Thank you. Respected Jha Sahab, Kumar Ma'am, Srivastava Sahab, Rajan Vora ji, Sudhir Kapadia ji, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome. The government has introduced another milestone in the journey of structural reforms. The announcement by the Government of India on 13th August on the transparent taxation, honoring the honest, is an extension of the e-assessment scheme launched by the Government of India in September 2019. The objective of this platform is to achieve faceless assessments, faceless appeals, and implement taxpayer charter. When faceless assessments and taxpayer charters will be implemented with immediate effect, the faceless appeal will be effective from 25th September this year. The introduction of this scheme comes at an appropriate time, as most of the processes is done digitally through COVID pandemic. This scheme is in direction of making assessees' life easy. Launching of the taxpayers charter is to ensure fair, courteous, and rational behavior to the honest taxpayers. These measures would strengthen the roadmap for making the income tax system seamless and painless, fostering a non-adversarial and conducive tax environment. It is clearly noticed that with these initiatives, government is taking a step forward in making the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. This initiative is a positive message across the countries that India is committed to improving both the ease of doing business as well as the cost of doing business in the country. The country has seen a new model of governance evolving in the tax administration. There's been a considerable reduction in the legal burden of the tax system. In the last few years, tax scrutiny cases has also reduced by almost 1/4 from 0.94% earlier to now 0.26%. This reflects the trust that the government is placing on the taxpayers. Under the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, almost 3 lakh cases have been resolved out of the court in a short time frame, which is a major milestone. Government has rightly increased the threshold for appeals to be filed by the Revenue Department to reduce litigation. I thank the Honorable Prime Minister for the care shown towards the honest taxpayers who are strong contributors to the nation building. However, there are also concerns. Litigation at the tribunal level may go up, lead to additional demands that there will not be a fair opportunity to explain the case, and there could be logical nightmares. So to explain the scheme to us and how it's going to be implemented, IMC through Direct Tax Committee has organized today's webinar jointly with BCCI through Direct Tax Committee to explain the scheme and to clarify the issues, if any, arising out of the implementation of the scheme. We have eminent speakers with us today. Mr. Patanjali Jha, Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, Mumbai. Ms. Lekha Kumar, Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, REAC, Mumbai. Mr. Kaushal Srivastava, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, REAC, 4, Mumbai. I would like to thank you all, the speakers, for honoring us and consenting to be a part of the event. Now, a few words about IMC. Established in 1907 and having its headquarters in the heart of the city of Mumbai, the Chamber is an apex chamber of commerce and trade and industry in the Western region, and its membership base of over 5,000 members and over 150 associates affiliated to it. Together, it represents and advocates interest of over 4 lakh businesses and industry established in the country from diverse sectors of the industry. It has 26 industry-specific committees of experts through which it provides policy inputs and recommendations at various levels of the government and organizes activities where eminent business and government leaders engage, and its members on a range of issues to create an environment for sustainable economic development. The theme of the Chamber this year is Reboot, Reform and Research. As these three factors are going to be very crucial for India and other economies globally reeling under the impact of the pandemic. With this, once again, I welcome you all for this interesting event. I'm sure we'll all go back enriched. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Poddar. I now request Mr. Sudhir Kapadia, President, Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to present the opening address. Over to you, Mr. Kapadia. Mr. Kapadia, you'll have to unmute yourselves and start the address. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Poddar, and thank you to all the dignitaries from the revenue for sparing your time and sharing your insights with our members. I would just like to, in addition to what Mr. Poddar said, I completely agree that these initiatives by the government are really praiseworthy. I would also take us back for a minute to the entire reform on GST, and many of us would recollect that when it was introduced in 2017, the teething troubles that came because of the technology did cause a lot of heartburn, a lot of angst, particularly in the first 6 months. And there was a feeling which industry and businesses had that did we rush into it too soon? But things did settle down after that. Today, the issues which we have in GST are less to do with technology, more to do with some of the issues around the rest of the legislation, etc. The reason why one should remember this is I really feel that this government particularly has been on the digital, on technology reforms, been a step ahead, or perhaps quite a few steps ahead of private industry. We have seen it in GST, and we are now seeing it in the direct tax administration as well. Whenever the government has spoken about taking steps on digital, we have felt in business that okay, it takes some time, there's been teething problems, etc. But the introduction has been relatively swift. So I think the moot point here, and amongst the many issues which the business would be most interested to hear about, is the following. One is, of course, how it will work, because there is a certain newness to having faceless assessments.
Sir, can you please unmute yourselves? Yeah. Yes, sir. Please continue.
So as I was saying, that I think what would be interesting is that this approach of going faceless in all matters assessments. And sorry, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think from an industry perspective, there are two things. One is that there will be a large number of assessments which can be done faceless in a very effective manner. There is no question about it. There is no doubt about it. We have seen some of it, during this pandemic as well. So whether you look at personal tax assessments or non-complex tax assessments of businesses, I think there is a great degree of comfort and a great degree of confidence that this should work quite seamlessly. It is a welcome move. Where I think the concerns are, to just put it in a very short summary, is where there are complex issues, and President IMC also alluded to it. The opportunity to have a discussion, even if it is virtual, even if it is through a video mode, on complex issues is something which businesses would request for, would want, because at the end of the day, if you are going to just take decisions based on data which you just collect remotely, then the concern is that any revenue group of officers who are looking at it may be tempted to take a very conservative view, rather than take a view which is favoring the taxpayer or seen to be favoring the taxpayer. I think that is one overall major concern which business would have, and we would definitely welcome your views on it. And the rest of it, of course, we can discuss in greater detail. But once again, really thank you for taking this time. And I also thank the government for this initiative. India will be one of the few countries in the world, if we really succeed in implementing this flawlessly, which will go down as a completely faceless interface with the taxpayers at large. Thank you. And Rajan, over to you.
Thank you, sir. As we are about to get into the subject matter of this whole session, may I request Mr. Rajan Vora, Chairman, Direct Taxation Committee, IMC, to introduce us to our esteemed speakers and give us a special review on the Faceless Assessment Appeals and Taxpayers Charter Scheme. Over to you, Mr. Vora.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajuji. Thank you, Sudhir. And it is a pleasure for me to welcome all our dignitaries who are come here to as experts to share their thoughts about what we call it faceless assessment and faceless appeals. As Prime Minister rightly said, it is a transparent taxation and honoring the honest. I think the news was in the air, but suddenly on 13th of August, we found this news came in and it was everybody was taken surprise. As Sudhir rightly mentioned, government is ahead in every step what has been taken. And as we have seen, this is again next biggest tax reform in the tax administration after GST, in the form of tax assessment, tax appeals. And we have seen in the pandemic, silver line of pandemic was the way the department, where the taxpayers, where the business has adopted the technology and absorbed the technology is really amazing. I can only share the experiences because what is close to me is the tax tribunal. Tax tribunal for almost our last 6 to 7 weeks, we have been doing virtual hearings and it is going so smoothly. And tax department has equally responded very quickly. And Lekha Madam was there in one of the first meetings when it was discussed we must go wholehearted for virtual hearing, and that has been successful model. And in fact, on that basis, we recommended to CBDT, please extend it to CBDT, to CIT appeals, to extend to DRP and AR. So that means things can work with the great experience of this technology absorption and technology utilization. I think that's a great learning what we have got. All of us at our age, we felt that technology is too complicated for us to absorb. But the way all of us have adopted the technology shows that we are responsive to the changes, what is coming in, and the need of the hour, we have moved to that. So with this brief issues, I think another important point which I would just like to make is a taxpayer charter. I think this is an important milestone. Right from 2007, we have seen this posters on the tax department's board about the taxpayer charter. But we have the statutory recognition only now. And 2 or 3 very, very important points which I'd like to touch upon, because Sudhir and Rajivji has already mentioned about issues on the tax faceless assessment. But taxpayer charter, treat the taxpayer as honest. I think that is the fundamental right of every taxpayer to be treated like I am not guilty unless I am proved. I think that's the way we should start with. And if that is the approach, there is a thinking change. I think it will make a lot of difference. Secondly, hold all its tax authorities accountable for it, which is the demand for a very long time, which is what is being spelled out in this. Third is reduce the cost of compliance. I think this is the one of the best measure which has been introduced in the tax charter. We have been seeing in global best practices that whenever any amendment, any circular is issued, always the tax of cost of compliance is always looked into. I think that's the way it has been spelled out. And also another important point, the surveys, which were many times used to be to complete the quota. The surveys were carried out in the TDS or for the tax assessments completion. That has now power has been taken away and given to Chief Commissioner. I think that also is a great relief, and trusting the honest taxpayer, as Prime Minister said, trusting the tax honest payers. There are many technical issues I don't want to get into because we have illustrious panel who is going to raise these points, raise these questions, and we have officers like Patanjali, Lekha Madam, Dinesh Kaushal Srivastava sir and Dinesh sir to all answer all those questions. And the panel, which is consisting of good ask question, will according later when we were saying they cover almost Tata's, Reliance, Birla's cover almost 50% of GDP. They are going to ask you the question. So you will get the full perspective of what the industry is expecting or industry is asking for. I think that's the way we have positioned today. So I have pleasant task of introducing the four experts, I would say, who have come to address us by sparing their time, and mainly because we have such a good panel, and I can see the amount of response which we have got for this is we already crossed, I think, 700 plus. I think this is one of the record participation for this program, and I think it's very, very well received because of the wholehearted support given by the tax department. I can only say Patanjali sir, I knew for last 2 decades, and we have been knowing him as one of the most judicious officer, even when he was ASC, ISC, and then the commissioner.
Hello. Hello. One minute. Yeah. So please unmute yourselves, Rajan sir.
And we are fortunate to have Patanjali sir back in Bombay, and we are happy to welcome him on the first meeting, that to webinar. When he came, I was talking to him. I said, we would like to come and meet you. He said, yes, come. We'll give a good kada for you to drink so that you have enough immunity for us to visit income tax office regularly. But I think before I could go for drinking kada with him, I'm here on a webinar with him. So that's the way. And I always remember for him, even though he's a taxman by profession, the way he has progressed or advised people in organic farming, for which I think we'll have separate session to learn from him how to do the organic farming and everything. But this is not the for faceless assessment. I don't want to disturb him and introduce you for that purpose. So we are fortunate that Patanjali sir is here as the Principal Chief Commissioner Mumbai, and also to share his thoughts about faceless assessment. We have Lekha Madam. Again, I have not occasion to appear or discuss with her anything or represent before her, but I have heard a lot about her judicious approach, and her overall systems experience. I think that is going to help in this faceless assessment. She is going to be CCIT regarding this charges. I think that will be the great opportunity for us to get redressal and solve the teething problem. Kaushal Srivastav, again, is he was a systems person. Now he's in charge of as a PCIT. That also is going to be great in charge. And again, Dinesh Chablani, commissioner, who is also a systems person, again in charge. So at least we are fortunate in Bombay. All people who have worked in the systems are going to head this wing of faceless assessment and faceless appeals. I think we are still awaiting the details about faceless appeals. We'll maybe have to have separate session for the faceless appeal, but at least for the time being, whatever we have, I think let us proceed with, get a lot of clarifications. And because a lot has been said about this, but let's hear directly from all the officers concerned, commissioners concerned who are present here with us. With this, I will request Chelvi to request our first speaker, Patanjali sir, to take us through the session. Patanjali sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vora. May I now request our esteemed speaker, Mr. Patanjali Jha, Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Mumbai, to share his views and presentation with the attendees. Over to you, Mr. Jha.
Thank you, Rajan. I would like to start the conversation with a short story. It's about a very illustrious bureaucrat who was the Chief Secretary in Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Narone. After his name is the Administrative Training Officers Institution in Bhopal. So post-retirement, he wrote an autobiography wherein he mentioned that he had known 2 kinds of speeches. One, a short speech, which was thank you. Madam, you can mute yourself also for a while. So one was a short speech, which was thank you, and the long speech was thank you very much. So bureaucrats normally are not known to be speaking, but friends, this is a landmark historical change. On the 13th of August, Honorable Prime Minister announced this honoring the honest taxpayer, having the three limbs, as my friends mentioned earlier, about faceless assessment, faceless appeal, and taxpayers' charter. All three absolutely landmark as far as the department is concerned. And in simple terms, as Honorable Prime Minister popularly refers to, is minimum government, maximum governance. So this scheme is a right step in that direction. And in terms of ease of doing business, taxes are concerned, easily one of the steps have taken in the history of direct tax department, as Mr. Vora referred to GST to the indirect taxes. I would say for the direct taxes, this reform would go as the core of our reform. This is the foundation stone for our 21st century modern transparent tax system, on which the edifice of the tax department would be laid upon. I will straight away get down to the basic concepts of the scheme. You need to, it is how to share. Yeah, sorry. So the basis of this was laid down in the earlier 2019 budget speech of Honorable Finance Minister, in which faceless assessment in electronic mode was declared with no human interface, notices to be issued electronically by a central cell, cases to be allocated to assessment units in a random manner, and central cell to be the single point of contact between taxpayer and the department. So this was the precursor to the major reform announced by Honorable Prime Minister on the 13th of August, and it ran quite successfully. So we were ready with the prototype, and now the full-fledged reforms came. You would have to come. It's not moving. Can we move? Yeah. Is it? At those three limbs: faceless assessments, faceless appeals, and taxpayers' charters. And other than the central charges and international taxes, all cases henceforth would be covered under this scheme. The faceless appeal, this thing is scheduled to be starting from the 25th of September. The modalities are yet to be worked out. It is going to be started soon. So the Finance Act 2020 had the necessary changes in this, and this was also notified by the board via the above SO number, and the scheme was named as Faceless Assessment Scheme. Procedure also is laid down. So as we see, friends, that there is one National E-Assessment Center, NEAC, in Delhi, and which basically laid down the same principle that there would not be any human interface. It has dynamic jurisdiction. It's a team-based working, and extremely the realization headed always done by a group of officers. And at all times, the faceless status is maintained. And these are the four basic units under the scheme: assessment unit, overall 95 of them, verification unit, technical unit, and review unit. As we see from the nomenclature, these are going to be specialists. And when we see the procedure for this, it leaves no doubt in our mind that the taxpayers would get absolute fair assessment, and the justice shall be delivered. So, as far as the REAC Mumbai is concerned, now earlier we had one CCIT REAC, now we have 5 of them, and PCIT's Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, 23 of them. Additional CITs, 85, DCs, 106, ITU and ITU headquarters as 28. The overall scheme is this. In Delhi, we have one principal CCIT heading the National E-Assessment Center, Mr. Punia. He's from Delhi School of Economics and one of our finest officers. And he's heading this team in Delhi currently. Under him is this setup. This is the overall scheme in Delhi. We all are would get familiar with these in due course of time. And the functions of NEAC is this, that they would be specifying the format, mode, procedure, and processes approved from the board. So this would be the FMPP. Which would come outlining the further procedure. Allocate e-verification under section 133C to verification units through automated allocation tool. At no point of time, there is a human application involved in selection of cases. So all the notices of selection of cases under scrutiny shall be done by the NEAC, which will be done electronically. Assign cases to AU assessment units through automated allocation system. On a request for verification by an assessing unit, allocated case to verification units through again automated allocation system. So if the assessing units want any verification to be done, it would be again done by the NEAC. At all times, it will keep going to the NEAC. At Delhi Center, and they would again allocate this through automated system. Provide technical inputs through technical units, issues such as legal, technical, data, analytic, forensic, accounting, forensic, information technology, valuation, and audit. So we have all these group, as I earlier said, that it's a team work, and there is no one single application. We'll get to see when we see the difference between the earlier system and the current system. So functions of NEAC is inform assessing officer if assessee fails to comply with the notice. Here, I would like to reiterate and request that the compliance should on behalf of the assessee also should be prompt and precise. Select draft assessment order for review. This is a very important thing that in this scheme, at every point of time, the opportunity is given to the assessee to controvert and to present. Earlier, I can mention of the follies of the department, like if there was any, reassessment notice, which would go from the department, it would have no mention of reason for, why are we reopening? So SSC obviously is taken aback. He doesn't know. He's groping in the dark that what is done, and he would request for the reasons for reopening, and he would be filing his return. Henceforth, no such opaque. Everything is transparent at the outset. He would be aware of what are the reasons for which any 148 or reopening or any notices are coming to him. So providing opportunity is a very core of this scheme. At every stage, he would get an opportunity. So much so that before finalization of assessment, again, a draft order would be sent to him. So finalize assessment orders, transfer all electronic records to jurisdictional work. This is the residuary part of the department, which we'll again shortly see. Constitution of REACs, that is the National Assessment Center in Delhi. Now we have the REACs in various other part of the country. So this would constitute, this is the following system by which this would be governed. As we see, they would comprise of review unit and technical unit, and headed by very senior officers, the chief commissioners, 5 of them in Bombay. So regional e-assessment center, this is the overall view where there would be PCIT assessment unit, PCIT verification unit, PCIT review unit, and they would have further officers to support them. The functions of REAC would be again assessment, identify issues, seek information, and analyze material to draft assessment orders. Verification unit would conduct e-verification, mind you, conduct inquiry, examination of books of accounts, examination of witnesses, and recording of statement, conduct physical inquiry only in instances covered by principal CCIT. NEC's order of the scheme. Review unit would review the draft assessment order, whether material evidence brought on record, points of facts and law incorporated, application of judicial decisions considered, arithmetic correctness, etc. All actions of AU, VU, RU, and TU officers are approved by the respective range heads. Now we can see the difference between the present scheme and the faceless assessment scheme. Case selection through system, it was manual, tax evasion information. These were the major reasons through which the cases were selected for scrutiny. Here, there is no discretion to any officer in selection, no selection except through system, no selection other than information-based. Cases were permanently assigned to a territorial jurisdiction. Now, in this case, automated random allocation of cases and jurisdiction in faceless teams anywhere in the country. Issue of notices both manually and on system, the present system. In the current one, no system generated notices triggered by alert. Notices without are invalid. This is a very something which is very close to our honorable finance minister's heart. We are constantly, under strict instruction. No notice whatsoever of someone's survey or anything which is served without DIN number, which is again a computer generated number. So everything would term as ab initio void or invalid. So the department is very strict about this and is on way. Now it has reached to its best. Notices to be issued electronically and centrally from the NEACs in only source from which the notices would come. NEAC is the single point of faceless contact between the taxpayer and the department. So present assessment system during a scrutiny proceedings, multiple physical meetings between the taxpayer and the officers. No physical meeting with any officer. No officer will call you to office. No more waiting outside the office. Identity to remain unknown. No human interface at assessment mode. I'll come back to Mr. Kapadia's point, which he had raised, that there is a redressal in the current scheme of that. Even for complex issues, there is something which is provided, and that is, but again, through a video conferencing in those exceptional circumstances. We'll get down to that. We'll get to reach there also. So wide discretion with officers were there, which also had some bit of a subjective approach in different regions, in different officers. Now, since it's a group assessment and very senior officers are guiding the entire procedure, we can absolutely be rest assured that it will be objective, fair, and just order. consultation with any individual officer. It's a team-based assessment. Overall, as we see that the number has been almost by half in the faceless assessment scheme. From 4,334 officers and officials, it has been reduced to 21,417. Yet the level of the vacancies, the fairness and objectivity is far higher, and we are now prepared to take the load of taxpayers and widening and deepening of the tax base. Current system. Otherwise, perhaps we were going into a moribund situation. So, a 21st century modern taxation system, prepared, geared up for the future responsibilities, and maintain and create new yardstick and new governance. So the remaining part of this, the department is currently has been termed as the residual hierarchy, which is the hierarchy which will have overall 32 chief commissioners in the country, 96 principal commissioners. Due to diversion of posts to faceless assessments in the residual hierarchy, each range will have the numbers, and the function hierarchy is this, which is important from the the grievance point of view, and for meeting the top standards for providing the best to taxpayers. As we see, rectification proceedings, grievance handling, demand management and collection and recovery of taxes, audit objections, judicial giving effect to appellate orders of various separate authorities, preparing scrutiny reports and filing of appeal wherever defending writ petitions, recommendations of SLPs, etc. As one of former speaker mentioned, now with the higher level of limits for filing appeal in ITAT, in Honorable High Court, in Honorable Supreme Court, litigation has come down dramatically. Further, the government and the quite aware and sensitive to the litigation. So VSVS scheme is one such brilliant scheme, as some speaker pointed out, that a good 3 lakh numbers of cases have availed of this scheme. It is still in vogue. It is still in vogue, and I also take this opportunity to invite more and more people to come and come clean and reduce litigation. So functions of also residual hierarchy is passing the statutory powers of 263, 264 by the principal commissioners, prosecution and compounding proceedings and related court matters, administrative HRD and cadre control matters, including related court matters, custody and management and control of infrastructure. All the above functions have to be done in traceless manner through ITBA portal as far as possible. So cases covered by faceless, existing cases where notices were already issued under 143(2), and by NESC, cases where returns of income were filed and case already selected for scrutiny, cases where notices under section 141 has been issued and no return has been furnished. So all these cases, which are basically pending cases of scrutiny, would come under this scheme, except international taxation and central charges. So, and this is the procedure. I would very quickly go through this so that just as to get the perspective that how truly faceless this entire scheme is. In assigned cases, AU is may make a request to NESC assessment unit to obtaining further information. I mean, it is AU is not directly doing it. It keeps going back to NESC because that is a single point of contact between the assessee and the department. Obtaining further information, documents, or evidence, conducting of inquiry or verification by verification unit, seeking technical assistance from the technical unit. Where a request has been made by the AU, the NEAC shall issue appropriate notice or requisition to the SAC or any other person for obtaining the information. So the SAC shall file its response to above within the specified extended time. Request for verification or technical report support shall be assigned by every time. It is the NEAC which is assigning this through an automated route, might you? Yeah. Can we shift the next? So the electronic records, as we are aware, where you have the digital signature or electronic verification code. This is very important, friends, as Mr. Vora was pointing out. Therein, somewhere, I have been a DG earlier in Bangalore. I have a definitive view that the cutting edge of our department is a direct recruit or a person of long-standing service, even as an assessing officer, as an ITO. And invariably, the cutting edge person is highly qualified officer. Perhaps it's not major comparable cases with other organizations. There is an officer with IIT, IIM, the universities, some of the most premium institutions. Those are the officers who are managing these. And I personally feel that it is in our DNA to be courteous, to be respectful in our dealings with the taxpayers. So exceptions would be there, but the broad character of this department, in my long history of the department, is that it is in our DNA to be nice, correct, and courteous. And we feel very happy now through a taxpayers charter. It is reinforcing our character, which is to provide fair, courteous, and reasonable treatment. Treat taxpayers as honest, provide mechanism for appeal and review, provide complete and accurate information, provide timely decisions, collect and correct amount of tax. So right, when you have a group, assessments being done, these are the objectives which are absolutely within reach. Respect privacy of taxpayer. Yes, we do. Hold its authorities accountable. The very fact the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned on 13th August that rare would be a time when a department, in a feudal setup, any powers which go, people are extremely unhappy, or people are extremely, let's face the reality. Here is a department, all the right-minded officers are wholeheartedly, and whole organization is wholeheartedly with this transition to laying down the foundation for a most modern tax administration, the comparison of which can be made with some of the best in the world. So also, in the same breath, we expect the taxpayers to be honest and compliant, be informed, keep accurate records, know what the representative does on his behalf, respond in time, pay in time, essentially be an honest taxpayer. And you have earned all the respect from the department and from the nation. Thank you. I finished.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jha. May I now request our esteemed speaker, Mrs. Lekha Kumar, the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, Regional E-Assessment Center, to share her views and presentation with the attendees. Over to you, Mrs. Kumar. Yes, madam.
Thank you. I've heard all the speakers before me, and the views expressed by everyone has been extremely positive, and I think all of us here today are looking at this scheme confident in this approach that it will be a resounding success. While it is at its very nascent stage right now, we've had 1 year of experience of the faceless assessments, which was like a pilot project. Roughly about 58,000 plus cases were being handled in the faceless scheme of things. And like any pilot project, there would have been and have been which have been in the process of being ironed out, and all the solutions are being solved, found and resolved. So last 1 year the department has already been working on this. Now if you see the past history of the income tax department, like the principal CC of Mumbai has already indicated, the department has always geared itself and taken bold innovative steps to improve its service delivery. And if you see last several years, we have always attempted and in providing not just the internal improvement of internal processes, but also providing better service delivery to our assessees and taxpayers. So if you see in the past also, when contrary to the time when we were calling for returns in a physical mode and people had to line up, I think many of you would remember those days. It was a harrowing experience for many, and the department soon noticed that in the month of June and July, we had to organize big fairs, return melas. In Delhi, I remember in Pragati Maidan, we used to organize. So I think those were the harrowing times, and the department was sensitive to realize that now this will not do. We have to do something to make it more comfortable, and therefore the e-filing platform was created, and it was born, and it was despite the fact that it was mandatory for a very small percentage of the people to begin with, we found that a lot of other people who were not mandatory category at all, but they found it so convenient sitting from the comfort of their homes that they started using the e-filing platform, and then so many returns came on the e-filing platform. Similarly, now again we are at the cusp of another very revolutionary historical moment when we are transitioning to this faceless assessment mode in a whole hog, like the whole entire assessment. Two categories of assessment
Hello, madam, you're muted. Yeah.
We will get complete cooperation from the side of the assessees and their representatives, and we'll make it a resounding success. And while the broad parameters of the schemes have been announced, and more detailed fine print is still in the, it's all under process, it's coming, and slowly more and more clarity will emerge. However, we would be happy to address any concerns that we can at this moment, and believe that we have the audience here has many questions to ask, so we would be happy to get on with that. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of this platform and to interact with you on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kumar. May I now request our esteemed speaker, Mr. Kaushal Srivastava, the Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Mumbai, to share his views and presentation with the attendees. Over to you, Mr. Srivastava. Please unmute yourselves.
Good afternoon, friends and respected seniors. The reason scrutiny assessment has been introduced is to make sure that the filing that is being done is accurate and the taxes that are due are collected. Over a period of time, the trust between the department and the assessees has gone sea change, and we have seen that in earlier days where there used to be 100% scrutiny of all the returns, we moved to manual selection of cases for scrutiny. And thereafter, we introduced computerized assisted selection for scrutiny. And thereafter, we introduced e-assessment procedure where all the records were made electronic and submissions were made electronic. And this is a major step change where we are transitioning into an era where the department would be invisible to the person who's undergoing scrutiny. And in the process, we are trying to implement systems which will be very transparent, which will be having equity and justice, and it will be uniform in its application. So this is a major change, and any change requires a lot of management, and we are aware of our responsibilities, how we are going to go about it in order to make it painless for you. On our part, we expect you to understand and try to adapt to the new environment. We will be definitely providing you the facilities where the particular taxpayer is lacking in infrastructure. We will definitely be rolling out our methods of making compliance easy for them by providing the suitable infrastructure. And we expect that you will also come a step forward. What we have found is that in most of the cases, the taxpayers, they are being mostly represented through their representatives or chartered accountants or advocates. My advice to all taxpayers and appeal to all taxpayers is at least once visit our e-filing portal and see for yourself how and what facilities that we have rolled out. In terms of even your grievance resolution, we have rolled out e-Nivaran, where all kinds of issues with the departments can be logged. So if you, once you actually start using yourself, the platform, then you will understand that how easy it has become for you to take care of your own tax matters, and even the compliance that is expected from you would be facilitated for us in much better manner if you take a personal interest into these affairs. With this, I thank you. I welcome you to the new scheme.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. May I request Mr. Sunil Kapadis to please go on mute mode? Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. After the precise and informative presentations shared, let us move on and elucidate all our doubts and queries through an informative panel discussion on this very topic, which will be moderated by Mr. Rajan Vora, Chairman, Direct Taxation Committee, IMC. Over to you, Mr. Vora.
Thank you, Sylvie. So instead of moderating, we have already circulated the questions to the all our experts. So I would request our panelists to start the asking the questions, and our experts will reply all those questions which are already circulated there. May I request Sunil Gupta ji to start, please?
Good afternoon, sir. At the outset, I must congratulate you for the great initiative the department has taken. I'm sure this will be a paradigm shift in the tax function of the country. Sir, this is a new scheme, and most of the taxpayers are not aware how they should comply with it. You mentioned that any assessment authority in Delhi will come out with the format processes. You also briefly explained about the procedure to be followed. But still, there are many minute details which are required by the taxpayers for communication, for submission of documents, what would be the role of intermediaries, professionals, who should sign the documents, whether each document should be digitally signed or physically signed and then scanned. So And what would be the procedure for video conferencing? So there are minute details. And would the department come out with a very detailed office procedure regarding this scheme? Sir.
A very nice question, Sunil. I can tell you that for a long association that we've had.
Sir.
The NEAC now in the earlier scheme, the NEAC was empowered to be giving this format, process, and procedure to give to the REACs. But under the current scheme now, since it is going to be covering the entire country on a much wider scale, so the same NEAC will be shortly notify the format, the mode, and the process and procedures, FMPP for the scheme. And as far as coming back to what Mr. Kapadia had said, that for the complex issues when they have and they do want to have a personal hearing. Personal hearing is a strict no. However, at the AU level, but there is a provision where the assessment is the draft assessment order has some additions to be proposed, and the SSE wishes to avail of the video, the personal hearing, then it can be done under the video conference. That already is in existence. I hope, although the new procedures is yet to come, but I hope all these good practices which have been followed so far would continue, and many more modified and specific addressing all your concerns shall be laid down in that.
Thank you, sir. My next concern is about the intimation to taxpayers. It is our experience that during the last 1 year, in the e-assessment, normally communications have gone on email. And what happens with the taxpayer, that these emails are not the regular emails he has given in the return of income. And the scrutiny comes after 2 years. So would there be a possibility that not only the communication should go on email, there should be a physical communication followed up by the SMS, because most of the taxpayers have given their mobile numbers. So at least SMS and email is there, and SMS email followed by the physical communication would be ideal, but at least SMS and email is there. It would certainly help the taxpayers.
Yeah, a very good point. Definitely, it is in the scheme of things. The SSE is sent email by NEAC on his registered email, not only on his registered email. If we remember that while filing the e-portal, you also have a secondary email. So on both emails as well as on SMS, but no physical intimation. So because it's going to be a faceless one, so however, it will be in all three modes the communication would happen. And my request is also to the SSE that they should be little careful in giving their mail which they look at. Although the department would take all measures, as I said, all the three modes through which the notices would reach, yet it will be in the interest of everyone and in the interest of the scheme that the SSE is also aware of the mail that he's giving in the email portals and to the department.
Okay, thank you, sir. So regarding the records, for completing any assessment by an officer, he would need the past records, he would need the earlier assessment orders, appellate orders, and also the current year, wherever the detailed submissions have been made to the assessing officer. How these would be made available to the verification and to the all 4 units of the e-assessment wing, that is assessment, verification, technical, etc. So is there any plan to get all these documents to be scanned and digitized in the department? Sir.
If we recall that, the ITBA is now very functional, and steps are being taken for getting uploaded, which is already submitted on the ITBA on our e-portal. These will be made available through ITBA to the assessing unit and to the verification unit and other units of NEAC. It would be made available.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Vora? Who's asking the next question, sir?
Praveen Sood from Tata Steel. Sir, good evening, sirs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible. You're
Right.
audible.
Sure. Sir, my question is basically an extension of what Mr. Kapadia has alluded to in his speech also. It is basically about the hearing. Now, in the past, physical hearings lent certainty to areas of conflict during assessments. And you have also pointed out that virtual hearings are a part of this faceless assessment. But the big issue here is that the virtual assessment, the hearing has to be first approved by the CBDT. So that's a huge bureaucratic layer attached to it, which means that it is going to be restrictive in general. Second thing is the virtual hearing going only to be limited with the AU, or is it going to be made, for the review units also, or the technical units? So how is this going to pan out, the virtual hearing thing?
I'm D.K. Chablani, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax RESC. I'll be answering your question now. I have been part of this setup since October 19. As regards the personal hearing is concerned, this is not a matter of absolute discretion. You remember that as a part of the scheme on para 12, there is a provision that NEAC, with the approval of the board, will lay out the circumstances under which the personal hearing will be allowed to a taxpayer. Now, once these circumstances are laid out, then the CCIT will not have much discretion to either accept or wrongly accept or wrongly reject a particular case. And secondly, your question is about the various units. So personal hearing can be had with the AU. The verification unit also can have a personal hearing, and technical unit also can have, but as far as review units are concerned, they are more or less working in the back end. Reviewing is a kind of pre-audit, so they may not have a personal hearing, but nevertheless personal hearing will be allowed on merits of each case. We just want to minimize the personal hearing issue, because more or less we find that the written submissions in most of the cases are sufficient to take a call on whether the addition or is required to be made or not. But nevertheless, all these things will be video conferencing, and there will not be any personal, physical, or so-called biological attendance that you may call. So it will be through VC only, and all the units can avail this facility.
Hello.
Yes.
So my second question is, presently all SSEs have this constant interaction with their jurisdictional assessing officers. It can be with regards to the correction of erroneous demands or the credits not being made available. Now, in this current dispensation or the new dispensation, what will be the role of the assessing officer? For the assessments that have got completed till last year, will all the powers of correction lay with the assessing officer, the current assessing officer? And if it is so, then what is going to be the bridge between the assessing officer and the faceless assessment taking place?
So faceless assessment setup is going to take over only the pending assessment proceedings. So hardly any issue except for compliance to the pending assessment will be dealt. Nothing beyond that would be dealt by the faceless system. As soon as the faceless assessment is completed, the entire electronic record will again be transferred to the jurisdictional assessing officer, which we are nowadays calling as a residual hierarchy. Now, the residual hierarchy will have complete jurisdiction over all the assessment years, whether they are in appeal or, assessments have been finalized, some rectification is required, some appeal effect is required, some refund is to be issued. All the aspects would be looked into by the jurisdictional assessing hierarchy, and the faceless setup will be only handling the assessment proceeding part, and that too in a pending cases, and after that entire jurisdiction will lie with the residual hierarchy.
Right, sir. Sir, the last question, and this is pertaining to the exception which has been carved out for faceless assessment, and it talks about assessment orders in cases assigned to central charges and assessment orders in cases assigned to international tax charges. Now, when we talk about international tax charges, it basically means international taxation cases, transfer pricing cases, advanced pricing agreements. Now, will transfer pricing assessments not be covered in the ambit of faceless assessment going forward?
Yeah, I'll answer this question. If you can read the scheme, the philosophy of the scheme is, one of the philosophies is about the functional specialization. And in order to achieve that objective, we have created technical units. And in the scope of work or scope of references that will lie with the technical unit, one of the items is transfer pricing. And you would also see in the part of, in the first few paragraphs of the scheme also, in I think notification 2746, that 92 CA is stated to be applying on the faceless setup. Now these two things put together make it very clear that the transfer pricing issues will not be out of the faceless setup. Now, as far as international and domestic transactions are concerned, let us try to remove this confusion by saying that the international taxation of the department deals with the non-residents, whether they are undertaking domestic, whether they are taking international transactions or anywhere in the globe. Now, resident taxpayers, which are residents, are dealt by the jurisdictional hierarchy. So non-resident taxpayers whose PAN is lying with the international tax, transfer pricing relating to those cases will be handled by the, reference will be made by the international taxation wing to the TPO, and the TPO will respond to them. As far as we are concerned, we will deal with the resident taxpayers and in relation to either their domestic transactions or international transfer pricing transactions. And whenever such an issue comes, we will make a reference to the technical unit, and technical unit will make in turn the references to TPO. Now, whether the TPO would be in-house part of the faceless setup or outside, I mean, on this working is still to be done. And whenever the time comes, we will be able to tell you very clearly whether the TPO will be exclusively given to faceless, or we will be using the TPOs that are existing under the faceless setup or under the international taxation.
Right, sir. Sir, and lastly, from my side, tedious proceedings are not supposed to be a part of faceless assessment. And
Yes.
for the SSE, tedious is also a sub-part of his major assessment being done. So is there any plan of the tedious also getting converged with the faceless assessment scheme going forward?
Yeah, I mean, one SSE has to deal with the tedious matter as well as the income tax assessment matters. But even in the field, before this faceless came into existence, the assessee was required to approach the normal assessing officer as well as the TDS AO, considering where his PAN lies or his TAN lies. As of now, the faceless assessment scheme is extended to PANs only, that is the normal income tax assessment. And going forward, I mean, there could be a talk about making the TDS also faceless, but this is not on the agenda as of now. And I think we need to wait for the government announcement on that. As of now, the TDS assessment will stay outside the faceless setup.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Rajeshwari?
Yes, Rajeshri ma'am, can you unmute yourselves and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I think the next slide shows Sushil Lakhani, but I'll be happy to take the slide after that, which is thank you. Okay, let me just get started. It's the next slide. Yeah, this is the one, correct. Thank you very much for, in fact, addressing, us. And I would thank each and every Patanjali sir and your entire team. I think this is the first step, or what I would say is, this shows that the leap of faith that the government has posed in its taxpayers, and I think that's very, very welcome. At the same time, as you rightly said, every reform has its own nuances. So, I'm sure that as a team, because teaming is important, as Patanjali sir had referred in his speech, saying that it's the work of the entire team. So the way we would look at it is that teaming is important out here as well. The only catch is that clearly the objective of the taxpayer and the department kind of tends to, the bridge kind of just gets extended at times. But having said that, I think every effort will be made to ensure that as taxpayers, we too will support the government and support the revenue department in this on this huge reform step that they've taken. Without getting too much of detail, but I just had three questions, sir. This is on resident taxpayers. And when I talk about resident taxpayers, I'm talking about domestic companies, essentially who do have international presence. Although there are carve-outs that have been clearly articulated in your scheme, I would just draw specific reference, and this is not more pointing out, but just a thought in terms of, I'm sure there would be some thinking around this at your end, but just wanted to place this on the table as well and get your point of view. We could, we have situations wherein resident taxpayers, large resident taxpayers who have joint ventures and pretty much do enter into international transactions, and we could have, got an AR on some of the transactions at least. Now, question is, so, on one hand, we're looking at digital transformation, and on the other hand, we're also, the objective is that we need a little bit more certainty and ease of doing business, right? So AR was one of the mechanisms to obtain that certainty. The question really is, where we have an AR already in place and we have an international party on the other side, if the domestic taxpayer is going to go under this faceless assessment, I'm sure that as a team, somewhere where there is an AR which is already in place, that would be taken into cognizance. And that's something I just wanted to get a sense from you, sir, in terms of what's the thinking around AR, as well as an APA, which is a transfer pricing, the advanced pricing agreement, wherein Indian companies have entered into APAs. Will that also be taken into consideration while we are picking up cases, and essentially while we are looking at the entire scheme of faceless assessment being applied to the resident taxpayer?
Yeah, so as far as resident taxpayers are concerned, as such, there is no change in the assessment process except for the fact that instead of individual assessing officer, it is going to be handled in a team-based environment. And it's more mostly faceless, like personal hearings are not allowed. So you are entitled to make your submissions online, and the faceless assessment officers within various units will not only take into account the AAR, but also the APAs. APAs, of course, are being considered more or less by TPOs. So as I already said in response to the question by Mr. Praveen Sood, that we will make a reference to the TPOs, and TPOs will definitely consider the APAs and actually transmit their report by giving the arm's length price, which will be considered by the faceless AO. So faceless AO is in no way different from the usual AO, except for the fact that he is not interacting with you in a physical sense.
Sure.
Rest, all the things will remain.
Sure. So the only add-on here is maybe just a slight distinction, and maybe I should just clarify that a little. When I'm referring to APA, one is, as you rightly pointed out, and you did explain that when it comes to at the domestic level, it could get referred to the TPO. I am also referring to if I have an APA with an overseas tax jurisdiction. So I can give you an example. I'm an Indian company. I have a branch outside of India. And I also have an APA which has been kind of signed off by the department on the other side. So question was that I'm talking of those APAs. So I can have an APA for a particular country for my particular setup in that jurisdiction. So question really was, is that also, I mean, I'm sure that will get factored, but I just wanted to get a sense, have we already factored that in, and is there some thinking around that?
How do you get it treated in a normal course before the faceless came into existence?
So we would have submitted that as a copy to the assessing officer out here at the, our jurisdictional AO and jurisdictional TPO. That is how it would have been factored.
The same thing would apply here also.
But that also calls for uploading of all these documents, right, sir? So somewhere I'm sure that that will be factored in.
Yeah, that will be factored in. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Related to this, sir, just one step ahead. When I am taking a branch as an example because at the end of the day, it is the Indian resident company who is going to be dealing with this. So I'll give an example. I have a branch in Canada, okay, and Canadian revenue authorities also pretty much do virtual assessments, and it runs very fine. So no problems at all. And I think so. Again, this entire faceless assessment concept is a huge welcome move. The question really that arises is, if I have a situation wherein my Canadian revenue officer comes back and kind of making some adjustments, or probably are proposing, or they have certain issues or questions, how will that then be dealt with, at least at the India level? So I could have so will that be treated as an international transaction? Because there is a slight gap between, for Canada, it's financial year, calendar year, that is also something which needs to be factored in. So today I can come back to the officer and seek a rectification, but how do I really do that in case of a faceless assessment?
Rectification of the assessment order you are talking about?
Yeah, assessment order, or for that matter, if there is any query that comes in from the overseas jurisdiction vis-a-vis the resident taxpayer in India.
So long as the assessment proceedings with the faceless AO are pending, all matters can be taken up with the faceless AO, and he, in consultation with the TPO, will take a call on every issue. After the assessment proceedings are over and thereafter you receive something, then definitely that also can be taken up in the form of rectifications, but that will be assessing officer, because after the faceless assessment gets about to get time barred, naturally these assessment proceedings will be finalized and our entire record will be transferred to the field AO.
Okay, fair enough. So, sir, is there some thinking around FAQs that could be introduced?
Definitely. Just a minute. I'll answer that.
We have a DCIT coordination. Some sound is going on. NESC is also going to publish very for the public to give its suggestions or concerns. So you will get your mail ID, which public using to communicate with you. And as far as your today's questions are concerned, you can frame them and send it across to the office of the PCCIT. There is a DC coordination section. I mean, it's email ID, if I spell out, is mumbai.dcit.hq.coord, COORD, @incometax.gov.in. So you can send across your mails and we will definitely get you the formal answer from the board or the NESC in this matter.
whatever can be whichever query can be answered at our level, that we would answer. For example, the jurisdictional officer would remain someone who is there to rectify any discrepancy which has crept in. And as far as the procedures or any other issues that people have after the SOPs are announced, can be sent through our offices also to the board, and you can also take it up independently with the board, CBDT.
Chavalin Sahab, you're on the mute.
Madam, you're mute. You're mute.
Yeah, so let me also clarify that the
Madam.
SOPs on the functioning of the TPOs on faceless setup on one side and international tax on the other side is also in the drafting stage, and you will definitely get a good insight into how the TPOs are going to function in a faceless setup.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Pranay, can you take,
Rajan.
Sushil Lakhani here. Pranay, can you just put up the slide earlier to this? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. And I echo sentiments of all my colleagues to compliment the government and the department for introducing this scheme. We really look forward to this and want to cooperate in all possible manner to make this a success. Well, sir, I have 2 or 3 queries. First one is, what would be the nature of the order passed by the NAEC? Would it be a final order, or will it again be eligible to opt for the DRP route? Like, would I have the option to go to the DRP after the order is passed by the NAEC?
Yes, definitely. If you are entitled to go to the DRP in the normal course of assessment, see what is happening in the faceless scheme is that simply the officer who is assessing you, number one, it becomes a team of officers. You don't know who he is, where he is. It's also jurisdictionless. The officer could be in any city of this country. Gets elected, the process is the same. So NEAC will first share the draft assessment with the assessee, especially especially where some addition is made on account of some issue that they have found in review or whatever, and that draft is shared with the assessee when there is an addition, and then input from the assessee is taken, and then a final draft is again shared with the assessee. So there is a to and fro from NEAC to assessee. And yes, at that stage, he has the option to take the DRP route or go to CIT appeals, as the case may be. And accordingly, the way it would happen in a normal setup, if you want to go to CIT appeal, then a final order is passed by the NEAC. So it's the same process that is there. Only the facelessness has now come into the part, and now NEAC is front-ending all the assessment units behind it. So it is just the entity that the assessee is facing.
Right. Thank you, madam. The next question, madam, I'll skip the 263 because I saw in your presentation that is the residual hierarchy. On the reassessment proceedings under 147, what happens to the pending proceedings as of date?
Yes. So
will they all get transferred to faceless?
Yes. Like I said, only 2 exceptions are there to the assessments which will not get transferred to the faceless scheme. That is from the central charges and those from the international taxation charges. Rest all assessment proceedings or reassessment, as you call it, under 147, they are all expected to get transferred to the faceless scheme of things.
Including the ones which are halfway through or completed, but order is yet to be passed?
Yes, yes, as of now.
Okay.
That is the scheme, yes.
Okay. And, in the existing 147, and as it stands in the law today, there is a reason to believe to be recorded. The officer is supposed to provide us a reason to believe, and then we have a right to object to those reasons. How will that work under this faceless scheme?
Okay, so now let's say there are 2 parts to this. One is those set of cases where all this activity has already taken place and the assessment is underway, right? The notices have been issued, assessment is on. Now those cases automatically stand transferred to the faceless scheme. Now let's say new cases, new information that has come in the possession of the department on the basis of which the assessing officer can form a reason to believe and some permissions, approvals, internal processes are to be followed. And of course, an opportunity to the assessee, etc. Now, this will be taken up by the jurisdictional assessing officer, because your PAN is lying with the jurisdictional assessing officer. Information regarding that particular PAN will come to the jurisdictional hierarchy, that is the residual hierarchy. So the fresh cases that will be taken up, but once the action has been taken and the case has been reopened and assessment is now due, the assessment immediately shifts over to NEAC, and NEAC will assign it to any assessment unit in the entire country in a random manner.
So if I understand you right, madam, up to the reason to believe step, it will be the jurisdictional officer. After, once he makes up his mind that yes, there is a fit case, then it gets over transferred to the NEAC. Am I right?
That's what we are reading. Yes, that's what we are reading into the scheme.
Okay.
However, more clarity will come once, you know, the finer details come out and the exact modalities will be worked out, and we'll share that with you.
Right, madam. About the, you know, rectifications, I believe that will be the residual hierarchy. Okay.
Right.
What about set aside assessments pursuant to an appellate order? Suppose an appeal order sets aside an assessment. Now, what happens? Does that again go back to faceless, or does it go to the jurisdictional?
It definitely goes to the faceless only, as we expect, because see, the exceptions have been listed out in the notification and it is not there. So we expect the set aside assessments will also be another type of assessment.
An order giving effect to appeal will be passed by the jurisdictional officer.
Right, jurisdictional.
Okay. And penalty proceedings, of course, the scheme says that penalty the AO would have to levy as per the directions in the draft assessment order or in the final order. Am I right?
No. Let me just clarify. Penalty, I think section 6 of the notification 3264, you need to see that. So penalty for non-compliance is the only penalty that would be imposed by the faceless assessment unit. Rest of the penalties get initiated in the assessment order, but actually it will be imposed by the jurisdictional AO. As soon as the assessment is over, the records gets transferred back to the jurisdictional AO, and the post-assessment activities are then they will take place in the jurisdictional AO hierarchy.
So the jurisdictional AO would have a discretion on the penalties.
On the other penalty,
if there is a
for
reasonable,
non-compliance,
about reasonable cause. If suppose the SSE is able to demonstrate reasonable cause, and wherever the law permits him to have a discretion, that continues with the jurisdictional officer.
Only the penalty for non-compliance is with the faceless. The rest of the penalties for concealment or other things, they will all come to the jurisdiction AO.
To the jurisdictional AO.
Yeah. The notification talks of only one category of entity.
In any case, the other penalties would follow from the assessment. So that assessment is with the faceless assessment, and this is the consequence of that.
Okay. Right. And about the Black Money Act proceedings, that would continue under the jurisdiction.
No, that is not covered in this.
Not covered yet. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So this is my first set of questions. I think I'll come back with some more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Patanjali sir, I think we have already lots of questions so to be asked, but I do not know how much time you have, because today I noticed that you have so many sessions already lined up. So keeping in mind, should we ask any second round, or we'll send our questions in writing and we'll expect replies from your office, sir? Sir, you're on mute.
Yeah. Two things. I just saw a few of the questions which was being asked by the audience. One among them was whether we would be able to send our presentation through email. Yes, why not? We want it to be, known to larger and larger audience for greater acceptance. Definitely. So PPT, what we share, we would definitely be sharing that. If there was one query regarding that, we would be happy to share that.
And sir, you have some more time, or?
I will go with the co-panelists. We can take few more. There's no problem.
Because Srivastava sir hasn't got chance. Srivastava sir hasn't got chance. I think he can reply.
And to our delight, we have some. The Lekha has worked in e-governance for good a decade.
No, actually,
So we really have some super specialists.
Super specialists, yes, sir. Absolutely. So we will request second round. Sunilji, you would like to start second round, please? But we'll try to be brief so that quick questions can be asked on the fast track board.
Sunil, please unmute yourselves and ask the question, sir.
Sorry. Rajan, I will skip first two questions.
Yes, sir. You, whatever feel comfortable.
That is about the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction, as we understand, the jurisdiction of CIT appeal, ITAT, and High Court will go by the jurisdictional assessing officer and not by the e-assessing officer. Right. But certain doubts have been raised about the jurisdictional High Court as far as writ matters are concerned. Suppose a taxpayer wants to challenge an assessment order in a writ jurisdiction, will it be, because it will be assessed by any assessment authority Delhi, will it lie in Delhi or somewhere else, or will it lie in Bombay? To give an illustration, if a Bombay company is assessed under faceless scheme and that company wants to use the writ jurisdiction, where should it go? Should it go into Delhi or should it go into the Maharashtra High Court? It's a jurisdiction aspect.
Sir,
would you like to?
Good evening, sir. You have so much knowledge that I don't think you need to be clarified. But in this matter, sir, the jurisdictional assessing officer is defining the jurisdiction of the SSC by virtue of his residual powers, and wherever a matter relating to appeal is there, it will follow the jurisdiction of the jurisdictional field assessing officer. The concerned ITAT, concerned High Court and Supreme Court is common for all. So it will be matter dealt with by even the writ matters would be filed in the concerned High Court of the jurisdictional assessing officer, and it will be dealt by the jurisdictional branch.
Sir, just one add-on question on this. Since this is a faceless assessment being done, will that assessing consider the jurisdictional High Court's order? For example, a Bombay High Court has given a ruling which is different from a Delhi High Court, and assessment goes into Karnataka assessment unit. Will he follow the Bombay jurisdictional High Court order or not?
Sir, in this regard, we are waiting the rollout of FMPP, which may clarify this point further. However, our understanding so far is that we have to apply the jurisdictional precedence. So based on the jurisdictional assessing officer falling in a particular High Court, that High Court will have its precedence. And in fact, we in NEAC and REAC are fully aware of the amount of more awareness and responsibility thrust on our assessing units to take decisions looking into this particular tricky aspect, where he is getting cases from different parts of the country. He may need to consider the cases differently also.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, next slide, please.
So I think
Praveen, rapid question, rapid round. Praveen, rapid round.
Yeah,
so we have only one question.
Partly my question has already been answered, but just to say that supposing if there is a certain there is a subject matter which has been held in one faceless assessment, and in the other year, in the second year, it goes to a different assessment unit anywhere in the country, can the position be reversed from what has been accepted in the first year itself?
See,
because that becomes a huge risk for the corporate.
See, it is not like that. Again, as we discussed in the last question, the assessing officer, even if he's sitting in a different part of the country, he has to consider the jurisdiction of the SSC and he has to apply the law accordingly. And for that reason, we'll be sensitizing and these clarifications will come in due course. And we can further await the FMP, which will be clear on this.
Thank you very much.
And one more point I want to make in this regard is that the assessment record has a certain continuity. So in 1 year, even if it is dealt in Gujarat, in the other year, if it is being dealt in, say, Tamil Nadu, the record of what has been done by earlier assessing units would travel to the other assessment unit in Tamil Nadu. So it will be for SSC, we are not visible, but for us, the entire record is visible, and we will be taking decisions as an AO of sitting in jurisdictional area does.
Right.
Want to ask one rapid round question? Sushil? Sushil, you have to unmute. Or Rajeshri, you want to take it? Either of you can want to take a quick question.
I think, Rajeshri, you want to take your question?
Yeah, one quick one. Basically, in the transition year, I mean, i.e., wherein cases which are already under assessment not completed, I did hear that even those would now be part of the faceless assessment. So is that like with immediate effect, or is there a transition period that one can expect as a guidance from the department?
Very good. That's a very good question, Rajeshri. I think very quickly, let me explain to you how things are going to move from here on forward. Like we have stated earlier, some of our jurisdiction field officers have been diverted into the faceless assessment scheme, right? So the field of the cases that they were being handled by these officers will be merged with the existing residual hierarchies that we are calling, okay? So this movement of cases to the residual hierarchies will happen once the new jurisdiction orders are passed, whereby all the residual hierarchies will have the PANs of all the SSCs, and the diverted hierarchies, they will, you know, shift their PANs to the residual hierarchy and move to the faceless assessment work, okay? So this activity, that passing of the jurisdiction order and then migration of the PAN to these new places, residual hierarchies will happen. It will take about 2 weeks' time. Wow. After 2 weeks, yes. So there is this transition phase when this new jurisdiction will happen, and very quickly we are doing it in a manner that will be seamless and painless. There is a utility on the e-filing portal where you put in your PAN. So after 2 to 3 weeks, if you put in your PAN, you will find out who your jurisdictional AO is now. Because part of, like we said, now in Mumbai, 5 chief commissioners are now being diverted to look after the faceless assessment scheme. So therefore, there is some movement there, but that is very much under control. Orders are ready. The orders will be passed very shortly. The PANs will be migrated in bulk, and it will happen very seamlessly and painlessly. In 2 to 3 weeks' time, it will all settle down. And then the new activity will start. Like we said, there is a transition time.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Sushil, last question from you.
Yeah, one quick question. Madam, how would you ensure effective communication to the SSC? Even today, number of times SSCs complain that their emails from the department were not received in their inbox. Now, this whole thing is going to be email oriented. Will there be SMSs also sent simultaneously? How would you ensure that the SSC has been effectively informed?
Yes, I think we are going to send emails to the registered emails, plus any other email that they have put in their e-filing portal, then SMSs in their registered mobile numbers, and most important of all, on their account in the e-filing portal, if the SSC opens, all these notices will be logged there. So whether it reaches their email or SMS reaches them or not, if they simply log on, they make a habit of logging on to their account on the e-filing portal, they will see all the departmental communication logged on there.
Right, madam.
So
and
that would be very convenient.
One small question. will
Yes.
consistency in tax positions be adopted by all assessment units, regionally? Like, what I mean to say is there are so many issues where we find conflicting positions being taken by the department officers in different jurisdictions.
See,
Will
one
this
thing,
change have that benefit?
see, consistency is the desired objective of the department, consistency and high quality. So firstly, the very fact that now a group of officers is handling this exercise, where senior officers are also involved, definitely a lot of thought will go into it, and there is going to be a sense of trying to get a sense of consistency. But you have to remember that different courts, where conflicting judgments have come, and high courts have given different decisions, to that extent that may get affected. So given that disclaimer, that if it is not there are no conflicting judgments, yes, that's definitely one of the major objectives of the department.
Thank you, madam.
Ma'am, only one question from my side. Sorry to ask the last question. Only what I'm saying is more because many times Supreme Court decisions come or High Court decisions come. So if there is some consistent position accepted by the department, will it come by a circular? So at least it is known to the taxpayer as well as known to the department. So there is no inconsistency between department and SSC or between the department officers themselves, ma'am.
Supreme Court order, there is no question of the that is supreme. So everybody has to.
No, so many times we read when we argue in the tribunal, we read the facts are not similar to Supreme Court, so we are taking a different view. So therefore, certain positions and department has rightly been issuing some circulars. If that type of circulars are issued, at least the department's position is known to the department as associate. I am saying that SOP we should to continue and exercise.
Only one point I'm cautious to ask, only one point I want to make in this regard, that we have made a major move in getting all the orders of the ITAT High Court computerized in our national NJRS system. So once we achieve a certain level of stability there, maybe what you are suggesting would be research where board may come up with more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Rajan, one question, if you permit me, is about the signature. The scheme talks about digital signature. Number of SSCs don't have these signatures. And what is the position of authorized representatives like us?
The digital signature also includes e-signature through OTP of Aadhaar. So any person who has his mobile registered with Aadhaar can put e-signature, and that is as good as digital signature. This is available to the entire Aadhaar holding persons.
And authorized representative position would continue.
Yes, sir. That whatever is under law permitted will continue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It was really very useful session, and I would say the new beginning has started of not only faceless but virtual dialogue, virtual clarifications, virtual discussions, and we will continue to do this. And it is a good beginning, and we have more than 700 participation. I think it was a good record participation for this session. I'm not sure you have been doing so many sessions, so I'm not sure, but at least for us, it was a very successful seminar, and a lot of doubts have been cleared. And I would say it's the beginning, but we'll like to have, once the faceless appeal scheme is out, we'll again like to bother all of you, and with the more SOPs coming in, at least we'll have some more clarity, and that we'll like to share with the trade and industry, because as our president mentioned, we have more than 2 lakhs trade and businesses, SMEs, who are members of our association. So it will be useful to reach out to the taxpayers themselves, and it will be useful. So with this, I would request our Atul Saraiya to propose a formal vote of thanks, well-deserved vote of thanks. Atul Saraiya.
I have the pleasant task of proposing a hearty vote of thanks. I am sincerely very thankful to behalf of both IMC as well as Bombay Chamber. Thankful to Mr. Pratanjali Jha for having spared his time and answered, first of all, described the entire scheme to us and then answered the questions, along with Ms. Lekha Kumar and Mr. Kaushal Srivastava. Of course, we were also joined by Mr. Dinesh Chablani, and therefore we had a very interactive session. I'm also thankful to all the panelists, which includes Mr. Sunil Gupta, Mr. Sushil Lakhani, Mr. Praveen Sood, Rajeshri Sabnavis, and
all the questions that were answered. We had a very fruitful session, and we look forward to the faceless assessment in a very smooth manner. Thank you very much.
And we propose a virtual vote of thanks by clapping ourselves for all the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you. All esteemed
Thank you.
participants, INC members, BCCI members. Thank you, and have a great
Thank
day
you.
ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Patanjali, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sudhir. Sudhir, sorry, I had to go. I mean, I called earlier. That was